how you want to support a particular topic and your opinion about it. And as you do the research, as you read the literature, then that changes. Okay, so that's normal. It happens. It really does. The literature might change it, and then all of a sudden, you've been in a different position that you might want to support on that particular topic. Okay, it's not a tragedy when that happens. It's just this is just the reality. You've now you're informed, and you have a better perspective on it. So, okay. And however, writing about something you believe in tends to provide the intellectual energy and commitment you need to make an effective argument. So, something that you're really passionate about is a good place to begin with your thesis. Good morning, Sarah. How are you doing? Good afternoon. Good evening. Yeah. Okay. And you're still muted. All right. Any questions on this? Any comments you want to make on any of this? And I open it up to all of the students and Professor Awaad as well. Anything? Okay. All right. So this. All right. Let's see. An effective claim is debatable. All right. So again, this thesis is a claim. It is something more than a simple statement of fact or personal preference. A debatable thesis raises a question or an issue that can be discussed at length, whatever your position. Okay. So let's look at some examples here. So, statement of fact. My college's code of conduct contains 18 different provisions. Okay, that's just a statement of fact. Debatable thesis. My college's code of conduct unfairly restricts students' right to free speech. So you see the difference there? This is just making a statement of fact. There's nothing really debatable about the first one, right? My college's code of conduct contains 18 different provisions. Okay, that's wonderful. That's some helpful information. But there's nothing debatable in that statement. But the second one, on the other hand, is my college's code of student conduct unfairly restricts students' right to free speech. So now that's an opinion, and that opinion can be developed into a strong thesis, and would have to be supported with evidence and other resources to make us see what they are seeing, and see if they can persuade us to take their side on that particular issue. Okay, is that clear? Is that anyone have anything they want to add to that? Or okay, all right, very good. All right, so the above statement of fact cannot be debated. Either the code contains 18 provisions or it doesn't. This is fact. The second item, on the other hand, can yield sustained discussion. So that's very true. Okay. So here, let's look at another one. Personal preference. Daily exercise makes life more pleasant. Okay. So that is an opinion, but is it something that is it strong enough to support in a thesis? Probably not. Debatable thesis. Daily exercise makes a person less susceptible to diabetes or heart disease. Now you have a great thesis. You can support this with evidence, with research, in just a host of literature to support that. And then you can find literature that will also debate that, will be contrary, and says that that daily exercise really doesn't have anything to do with it. That is mostly just diet, and doesn't really. Exercise has has no measurable effect on it. So there are two sides of that argument, and you will find that in the research literature as you look at it. So, so the preference stated above is based on personal taste. Not everyone enjoys daily exercise. Okay. The second item, on the other hand, is debatable because it can be discussed in the light of objective medical research. So, that's very, very true. Okay. Is that clear? Is that starting to make sense? You're starting to see how you might be able to develop your thesis based on these examples here. Okay. All right. Okay. So an effective claim is supportable. Okay. So before you decide to take a position on an issue, think it through or collect concrete evidence to defend your thesis by using one of the pre-writing strategies discussed in chapter 2. Okay, so chapter 2 wasn't an assigned reading, but I always encourage my students to read the entire text if you have time. And again here, so it refers to chapter 2. So highly recommend you go back, look at what's in chapter 2. Okay, there. Okay. Okay, so compare these two items as well. So indefensible. Okay, to reduce fat in your diet, you must become a vegetarian. Okay, so they say that you can't defend this. This is not defensible. Okay, so here's a defensible version of that. Eating less meat and more fruits and vegetables can help you reduce fat in your diet. So now that one you can defend. So the first example argues that there is only one way to reduce fat intake, a claim that can be dismissed easily, given the fact that there are varieties of meats that are low in fat. And that's very true, like fish, turkey, whatever, So the second claim is far more reasonable and can be supported by evidence. So again, okay, is that clear? Is that making sense? I hope that it is. Okay. Yeah, these textbooks are very good. I like the text. Good, thank you. All right, an effective claim is focused. So this is very important too, because Professor Awaad and I have to read your thesis, and so we hope that they don't run 1,000 pages long. So what helps you to reduce that content is to stay focused on a particular area, because you'll find that you can branch out to many different areas on any topic, but you find one specific area on that topic and that you want to argue and stay focused on that. So as indicated above, once you have drafted your essay, you may want to revise your preliminary claim or thesis to make it more specific or to fit a change in your position. Your thesis must also be focused enough to be argued effectively in a short essay. Okay, too general. The college does not maintain up-to-date equipment. Okay, focus. The college must replace its computers with current models if it is to support classes requiring the latest engineering software. Okay, so that's more focused there. All right. Does that make sense? Do these two examples make sense? Is that clear to everyone? Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. The first item. Yes.
I would like to emphasize that the value of focus, because this is a master's thesis. It's not a PhD, so the time frame is very short. And you need to support your position with research. So you might need to do some interviews or collect data from public or paid databases. So again, it it will affect how do you use the time available to write your thesis. So the more focused the question you are asking, the more focused the hypothesis you are making. So another word for claim is a hypothesis. You have a hypothesis based on observation, and this builds a claim, and you need to find what evidence that support your claim. Part of the evidence is based on previous literature. That's why we do literature review. And part of the evidence is the new research that you are doing to support this hypothesis, or maybe you change your position based on the research that you've been doing. Yeah.
Very good. Yes. Yes, definitely. And I know that Mansour Rodas and Samia and Sarah were in the research and development management course, and we talked about hypothesis and how the so very good. So yes, that's excellent. Thank you, Professor Awaad. Yes. So when I was in my PhD program, I was in that program for 7 years, and 3 of those years was just doing the research and collecting the data. So yeah, you don't have 3 years to work on this, and it's absolutely true. So you want to be focused. So thank you so much, Professor Awaad. That's excellent. Yeah. Very good. Everyone clear on that? Is that you understand? You see why it's important to be focused? Okay, good. All right. So the first item could result in a lengthy essay, okay, in which you discuss a wide range of equipment, and thus taking longer to do because you have so many different areas to support on that. Writing an essay on the second item would be much easier and hence much quicker to be able to accomplish. Okay, so all right, so let's take a look at this video, and this is a little longer than some of the videos that I show, but I just thought it would be really good to just look at this one. Okay, so let's give this a view.
Welcome to Critical Video 4, Developing an Argument and Taking a Position. When you're writing, you need to consider the position that you will be taking. In the earlier video on reading, we pointed out that when you're reading, you need to try and identify the position of the authors that you have read, or at least the position of their papers. This is because no matter what issue, concept, event, or theory you're engaging with, there's always a spectrum of relevant debate. This isn't always a pro, con, positive, negative, yes, no situation. The spectrum of relevant debate can be very complicated and does mean there's very many different positions. This means that when you come to write your essay, you need to think, well, where on the spectrum does my essay sit? In this case, I would be using authors A and B to support my argument. I wouldn't ignore author C. I'd still talk about them as well, but I may say why their position is less convincing or less accurate, or why it won't work in the context that I am discussing. In doing so, we also have to realise other students may choose other positions. This isn't something to be too worried about, as long as whatever you're doing has sufficient academic evidence and is written well. Of course, whenever we're taking a position, this is the kind of thing that we'll mention in our introduction, and we'll also make sure we revisit in our conclusion to show how we've demonstrated it. You essentially can let the evidence decide for you. It's almost like imagining you're on a sailboat, letting the wind take you. As you read evidence A, it may lead you towards that position, but further evidence takes you away from it. This direction can really vary depending on the weight of the evidence itself. My lower blue arrow shows a really strong and convincing piece of evidence that eventually led me towards position B. When you're reading, try to take notes that will help you reflect which direction you're heading in. Of course, this is a piece of thinking you want to do before you start writing. Nobody needs to read about the messy thoughts as they occur. Your writing should be a little bit more well-rounded than that. The stage can be a very useful metaphor for academic writing. You'll notice my stage has some scenery, a backdrop. This represents the real fundamental and founded ideas in the discipline. It's the kind of thing that I would see written into textbooks. It's very common, well-evidenced, well-established ideas. On the stage, you'll see there are a number of actors or players. These can almost be thought of as journal articles. In each of them, they represent slightly different positions. As the research becomes more established, these players can start to fade into the background itself, as we can see with the middle two characters. For us as students and writers, we need to think, well, where do I stand on the stage? Which evidence do I want to use? Most students make the mistake of assuming they are the narrator. They stand behind the curtain talking about all of the evidence or players and where they stand. That tends to not lead towards very critical writing and can be very descriptive. A much better essay tends to be focused around when you choose one of those positions yourself. Who do you stand next to? It's at that point your writing becomes much more critical, because you begin to talk about why that position or argument or idea is convincing and why the other ones on the stage are less so. The key point to remember is you're not the narrator. You need to talk about why this evidence is convincing and what position should be the one adopted. This, of course, is a true academic argument. So it's important to look at exactly what an academic argument is. An academic argument can be defined as a logically connected series of reasons, statements, or facts, also known as evidence, used to support or establish an idea or point of view, which we can see as a claim. The purpose of an argument is to persuade the reader to accept that claim. As such, we can think of an academic argument as a little bit like a recipe. To have an academic argument, we need these three building blocks: a claim, a premise, and an attempt to persuade. The claim is not necessarily the answer, but it's what you, the writer, are claiming is the best answer. This is, of course, contextualized with the limits of knowledge as we know them right now, and what you know and what materials you have available to you. We tend not to write indefinites in academic language. Your claim is backed up through premises. A premise is a principle or statement which is believed to be true and leads to that claim. And this can be based on uncontested or contested knowledge. Uncontested knowledge is stuff that's generally agreed. This tends to be very founding and set things within the discipline. Contested knowledge is stuff that's very new. It's still in the journals and we're still trying to find out how it works. Evidence is building, but there may be several different positions out there. When you're using contested knowledge, you need to be really clear which side you're on and why that's the side and why it's convincing. Without getting too complicated, you can just think of your premises as the reasons and evidence that you are using to justify your conclusions. In short, premises tend to be references, although in a reflective assessment, this can also include our own thoughts and reflections where appropriate. One of the most important things we have to do is persuade our reader of our analysis and why that evidence leads to the claim. To do this, we need to be very clear on what our position is, and we also need to take our reader to that. We need to show them why this all fits together. So for an argument to be good, it needs to meet two conditions to be persuasive. That evidence or premises must be true or at least acceptable, and the inferences which you draw must be good ones. So let's look at an example of this. I'm going to claim that hand washing can reduce healthcare associated infections. The first piece of evidence or premise I have is based on Loveday et al.'s 2014 article. They argue that the transfer of organisms can occur directly between humans or indirectly via the environment. My next premise or evidence is that hands are the principal route by which cross-infection occurs, and that comes from Weston's 2013 paper. My attempt to persuade is trying to link all of this together, and in this I'm going to argue that hand hygiene is the most important factor in the control of infection. I've purposefully made this not the best attempt to persuade. In arguing that is the most important factor, I'm actually discrediting all other theories and all other positions. A much better attempt to persuade might be that hand hygiene is one of the most important factors in the control of infection. The reason I do this is simple. If I leave it as it is now, my entire argument would be destroyed by somebody pointing out that, well, as much as cross-infection and clean hands need to be controlled, another thing that's just as important is that the environment itself is clean. While we can wash our hands as much as we want, it's not going to make much of a difference if we're helping people in a very, very unclean and unhygienic environment. So let's look at some of these other elements. The biggest mistake that most students make is they miss the attempt to persuade. They produce a claim and some evidence for it, but they don't really show how those two things link together. Of course, without an attempt to persuade, we do not have an argument, and if we're not presenting an argument, we're not being critical. Another issue that might occur is if we take away the evidence or the premises. If we have a claim and an attempt to persuade, we do not have an argument, or at least we don't have an academic one, because there's no evidence to show why this is the case. Let's now remove the claim. If we take the claim away, we've just got evidence and attempt to persuade. While this may be very academic and very good evidence, it can be very difficult for a reader to know exactly what you're trying to argue if you're not upfront about this. As such, we need all three of these components, our claim, the premise, and the attempt to persuade, to have an argument, and we need to have an argument if we are to be critical. For this video's activity, I'm going to present you an issue, and I want you to consider what position you would take and how you would defend it. The issue is, should smokers get free healthcare for smoking-related health problems? In your reflection on this, you should think what your claim is. So what do you think is the best answer? What reasons you would give for this? And why does this evidence support the claim you are making? You don't need to go away and do any reading for this. Just think around the issues and the different forms of evidence you would give. This is a good example issue. Very few people end up in the binary yes or no position. There's often quite a few conditions around this. For example, I may believe that smokers shouldn't get free healthcare for smoking-related problems, but I would have exceptions. Maybe those who are exposed to second-hand smoke without any control. Alternatively, I may take the other position that everybody should get free healthcare no matter what their condition is and their lifestyle. However, if you are a smoker and you are in need of, say, a lung transplant, you maybe shouldn't get that if you're unwilling to give up smoking, because you're just going to ruin your next set of lungs. These are very crude examples, but they're quite a nice way for us to think about what position we take on that spectrum and how we may defend it. I now invite you to do the same.
All right. So, okay. So, this session is going to end shortly. So think about some of the things that they discussed in the video. I think that was very helpful. And then we'll come back. So let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. We will come back at 10:05. Okay. All right. I'll see you at 10:05. twice, so it's good. But yeah, so no one really takes anything at face value. You have to present evidence on almost anything that you claim anymore, and I think it's a good place to be. People are more critical thinkers. They put more thought into their opinions, and they try to support their opinions with evidence, and it's very, very important in so many different aspects of life. What do you think about that? What do you think comes to mind when you see these two questions and this whole making a case? And you notice how in the text they have that really emphasized, it's making a case. And these two things, these two questions are what you have to answer in order to make your case. Anyone want to comment on that? Give an opinion, or maybe you had some experience with that. Okay, so think about that, and we'll come back to just raise your hand or speak up when something comes to mind. Okay. All right. So you heard or read about some topic that interests you, call it X, and soon enough you form an opinion about it. Okay, nothing much happens until someone asks you a key question. All right, so what do you think about X? Now the wheels are turning, right? And you all of a sudden you realize I actually have an opinion, a point of view about this. So this question starts many serious conversations, but it leads to stating opinions, not to argument, which means a reasoned defense of an opinion. To get to argument, you need a question with a sharper edge, a critical thinking question. So why do you think this about X? Okay, so now that is, what reasons do you have to explain and justify what you think? What evidence do you have to back up your opinion? But now we're into an academic argument, right? So, so when you answer these questions, you're making a case, arguing for a position by advancing reasons and evidence in defense of it. Okay, so anyone have an example of that? Any topic, just toss one out there, and let's see what we can anything that's a current event or anything like that. Let's put it through the this little formula, see if it works. Okay, so one of the ones that I can think of is they say that animal waste increases methane, gas, and so we have these greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change and global warming. Do you agree with that or disagree with that? So what opinions do you have on that? We have maybe someone might have an argument that this is why I'm vegan. So we don't need to have all of these animals for food or whatever. Okay.
Climate change usually create heated discussions. Yeah, because many people attribute it to human activities.
Mm-hmm.
And other people say, how about the natural activities and the natural events? For example, volcanoes that we don't know and we cannot quantify their impact on climate change. So I have been to so many workshops and conferences where there was a very, very heated discussion about, yep.
Exactly. I know. Until recently in the U.S., this was a major position that opposing political parties would take. And now it seems that everyone has come to this agreement that there is definitely climate change happening. They just don't agree to how that climate change has come about, and what influences it. But we do see that there's a change with, like you said, some say it's human cause, some say it's natural cause. And we don't have enough recorded history to really know, right, what degree climate has changed. We know that we had, the ice age and things like that. So yeah, very good. So that's right. That one can really get off and running. And so that's why I looked at a specific argument. So a lot of farmers and ranchers have been getting a lot of negative press because they say, well, you have all this cattle and or other animals, and these animals are contributing to this, and some people need to eat less meat. so you can get on any side of that argument. We have some interesting conversations within our family. I have a daughter and a son-in-law who are vegan, and it really gets to be interesting. Another thing that's interesting is preparing meals. So that's and at one point he was even gluten intolerant. So it was vegan, gluten-free meals, and that was really tough to do that. It was quite the challenge, but my wife managed, and they lived with us here for over a year through the height of the pandemic and a little beyond that. So actually, I think maybe 2 years. So during that time, most of our meals were vegan and gluten-free. But they had some interesting points of view on that.
Yeah, I think, Professor, here in States, so many kids are turning vegan. I mean, I myself turned vegetarian like 6 or 7 years back.
Yes.
And I see that impact on my kids as well, that my daughter doesn't want to eat any meats, and she doesn't want to eat eggs or anything. So yes, I think, and I see the families where meat is the main staple food, those kids are turning into vegans. So definitely, all this research where they watch these videos that how animals are treated when they actually bring those to the stores and to your table. So that cycle when they watch, I think that changes their mind.
Yeah. And there's lots of documentaries on that as well.
Yes.
So, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, any other comments on that? So good. I think we're is this helpful for everyone that we're going through this whole this rhetoric on how to create an argument and the different elements that you need to have in order to call it a thesis. Good. Yeah. This is very important because this is going to drive your thesis. You're going to want to make sure that you have that you review this, and you will definitely go back and review this content to make sure that you are hitting all these different points. Okay. All right. So that's good. All right. So what is a case? I mean, let me make sure I didn't skip any pages. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. Okay. So a case develops an opinion about a controversial issue or question. It has 3 parts. All right. Okay. So a claim or thesis. Example: college costs are unjustifiably high. I just did a poll on LinkedIn, and that included this. And it was interesting feedback on that. And then one or more reasons that explain or justify the claim. Okay, reasons or claim reasons. Okay, they have increased much more than inflation over the last 30 years. So that's an example. Okay, so there you go. Okay, and then appropriate evidence to back up each reason. Okay, example, data comparing the cost of living in general with increases in tuition and fees over the last 30 years. So this is nice, right? I really like this this little layout, how they do that. And in fact, I would recommend that you um, take a snapshot of this and keep it on your mobile device, something that you can go back to as you're writing, or pin it up on the wall where you're working, or make it a little post-it note or something on your computer or your device that you're using to write your thesis, and go back, and so that you can have something that you can visually reference as you go through, and you can kind of check yourself as you go along. I think that's a really good outline. I just like that. Like claim, reasons, and evidence, and it explains what those are there. Okay. Any comments on that? There's a nice visual that's coming up here on that. That helps. Okay, so here we are. Here's our thesis. And then we have our reasons, and we have our evidence. And so let's take a look at this. So here's our claim, and you notice how you can have several reasons, right? It doesn't have to be a single. You can have several reasons, but each reason is then supported by evidence. So that I really like that. So this is a really nice flow chart. So someone give us a topic. Just toss something out there, and then let's see if we can just kind of off the top of our heads, just based on what we know, what we've heard, can give some reasons, and then can explain how we need to support those reasons with evidence. And we just talked about one, right? We talked about a couple of them. We talked about climate change, and we talked about a vegan lifestyle versus the carnivore or omnivore lifestyle, where people are eat everything. So let's any others. What's something else out there that? How about space travel? You know that there are some people who believe that space travel is really just a waste of time and money. So let's put that out there in NASA and some of the other space agencies around the world are talking about how they want to go to the moon and use the moon as a launching point to go to Mars or Venus, and believe it or not, there's even two groups of NASA scientists who have opposing views as far as where they should explore. Some even are in the Venus camp, and it's almost right, kind of men are from Mars, women are from Venus kind of argument, but it's interesting that some have a strong arguments for why we need to be looking at Venus instead of Mars for this space travel. So let's say that it is space travel. So the reason they want to look at Mars is because they believe that there's some untapped resources there that we can use, and they believe that as we explore the solar system more, that we'll find resources, and they believe that those resources can in turn help us here on Earth. And but other people are saying, well, why spend all those resources when you can save that money and explore the oceans. Some oceanographers are saying that we know maybe 10% or 20% of what there is to know about the oceans around us. That a vast amount of the oceans are unexplored, and they actually will discover new species every once in a while that they never knew were there. So some say it's here, it's on this planet, and that it'll have a more immediate impact on us. So that's where they have their reasons, and then they have their evidence. They try to support their evidence with. I mean, there are reasons with this the evidence there. So, anyone have anything else? Sure, go ahead,
So,
Tommy.
so yeah, definitely, it's definitely a debatable topic when it comes to the space travel. Like
Mhm.
very recently, India launched another spaceship towards moon, and
Mhm.
it's not the first time they were landing there. I think it's maybe the second or third, I guess.
Mhm.
And now the competition is that who reaches moon earlier than the other one, right? So even though it's becoming a developed country, I think there is still lots of opportunity to preserve our own planet. Like we that money they're spending on the spaceship and reaching to moon, if they spend that money in the progress of the country or world, and because I don't think that scientists still know our own planet very well, and they're trying to know the other planets. So before really trying to know the other planets, I think they need to preserve this planet and try to do something for this planet, and then spend money on trying to know other planets. So yes, definitely, it's like argument and topic of debate.
Mhm. Yeah, so good. So that's a great example, right, of how we can look at a specific thesis or claim, and then start to support that with reasons and then with evidence. So very good. Thank you. Anyone else?
I would love to add something about the quantitative and the qualitative analysis that you should do.
Yes.
So part of the evidence should be quantitative, part should be qualitative. So you can balance, you can uh, highlight any possible bias in the data. So, for example, it just came to my mind from a financial point of view, maybe return on investment. So we invest all this money in space programs. So what's
Mhm.
the actual return from this program? Another quantitative analysis that we can borrow from the business field is internal rate of return. If I
Mhm.
will invest the same amount of money in something else and we specify this other thing, that's, the example, exploring the ocean,
Mhm.
the return might be higher. So there is some sort of comparison. So
Mhm.
whatever the claim, whatever the thesis, whatever the hypothesis, um, the researcher has to include some qualitative aspects and some quantitative aspects to support the argument. Yeah.
Absolutely, very good. And again, I mean, I'll refer back to these students who have all taken that research and development management course, and I know that they're familiar with quantitative and qualitative research. And here's something I wanted to, because I come from the old school, right? I have grandkids. I'm an older gentleman, but one of the things that they used to use this term a lot was mixed methods, research, and some still do that, but really it's kind of redundant because you're going to have, as Dr. Awaad has said, you're going to have some elements of quantitative and qualitative research. It used to be they used to think that you can have one or the other, and then the third kind was mixed, where you combine the two. But not so anymore. The best research and again, your best thesis, as Dr. Awaad has has indicated, is going to be one that is a mixed method. It's going to be one that includes some of both, because especially if you, your strongest evidence is going to be your quantitative data, right? Your quantitative elements of your research, but the way you're going to be able to persuade people is going to be some of the qualitative methods. So this is your surveys, and you say popular opinion really goes a long way. You just look at social media to know that. So a lot of survey data. Of course, you can measure that quantitatively as well, but it is considered qualitative because it's really based on something that's not a numerical, concept or content. It's more of opinions and perspectives and feedback based on your surveys. So very, very good. Thank you. Yes, that is absolutely true. So I hope you're taking good notes or keeping it in your head, because there's a lot of information that's coming here, and I'm recording this, so we'll get those uploaded so you can go back and refer to this. And I believe that Sarah is also recording it. I did see that the meeting note taker, I believe, is also recording this lecture as well. But there's just a lot here, and it's going to really help you as you go through that. So let's see where we are here. Okay, so why make a case? An issue is controversial when reasonable people take different positions on it. So I like how they worded that, right? Reasonable people, because we can argue about anything, but one reason to make a case is to convince readers to accept one of those positions, and that's really it's a debate. Really, is what it is. Your thesis is really one side of a debate, and and a good thesis, it presents the opposing views as well. So you don't want people to be suspicious that you're just being 100% one-sided. You expose them to what the other side is debating as well. Okay, so for example, perhaps you feel that texting and talking on a handheld cell phone while driving should be banned. In an editorial or a blog, you could make the case by pointing out how dangerous it is, right? Convincing other people, however, is not the only motivation for making a case. We all have casual opinions, or we have never thought through. So that's very true. You think something, but it's not worth arguing about. How valid is one of the unexamined opinions you have? The best way to answer that question is to attempt to make a case for it. So if you cannot make a good one that other people find convincing, it may be time to change or modify your opinion. Making a case, then, is not only a challenge to convince others, but also a testing of how sound your opinions and reasoning are. So that's someone, could you give me an example of something that you have a casual opinion about? And that's really a strong opinion. You've never really given it much thought. But it's just something that people talk about, they discuss, and but if you really give it a lot of thought, maybe you can build a case for your opinion about it. Okay, let's see if I can think of something here. Okay. So one of the things that people have been talking about a lot lately is whether or not college athletes should be able to, and I think the ruling is that they can, but should they be paid? Or because universities here in the U.S. make hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, off of their athletes. And it's been something that's been done for years. And athletes had to maintain this amateur status, and they couldn't be paid, or they couldn't accept endorsements. They couldn't endorse products. But the universities, colleges, and universities were making quite a bit of money on these athletes, on their names, on their images. But now, I believe it's the case that they can. And I don't spend a whole lot of time watching sports, anymore. I used to when I was younger. So I didn't really have a strong opinion about it. But I could see how if someone is doing the work, and it could also help them to pay for their tuition, maybe beyond the undergraduate tuition costs, because some of the athletes have their tuition paid for them if they're on a full ride, but not all. Some have a partial payment. So if they're part of a team and that team is being promoted, and the school is making money off of that particular sport, then maybe it's time for those athletes to be compensated for that. In all fairness, so that could be something that I've never really given a whole lot of thought to, but maybe I can make an argument for that. So does that make sense to you?
Well, someone might have a counter argument,
Mhm.
saying the universities are not-for-profit entities unless they are private,
Mhm.
and the students are compensated via scholarships.
Mhm.
Most of the students who are part of a university team, they are compensated with free scholarship.
Mhm. Yes, especially the ones who are on these sports teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of them are recruited. They go out and they recruit these students, and they bring them in, and they have full ride scholarships. There's no
Mm-hmm.
cost to them. So very good, very good.
So this is a very good example of an opinion.
Mhm.
So that's why it's being specific is very important and difficult at the same time.
Mhm.
Because you might have an observation in your field, in your career. For example, last night I've heard Dr. Gabor Mete talking about stress and how most of the women who have what's the disease, multisclerosis,
Uh-huh.
or no. Most of multisclerosis patients are
Mhm.
women.
Ah.
Okay, so
Mhm.
this is the hypothesis, and the second part is because multisclerosis is linked to stress, and women are more stressed than men.
Mhm.
So see the full argument.
Mhm.
So again, even himself in that interview, he couldn't provide a coherent evidence. He
Mhm.
said there are partial research on this area, and he asked some physicians, and they said, "Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, that's the observation, or
Mhm.
maybe that's the hypothesis." But again, it needs to be tested, researched, maybe taking a very large sample of of the patients, and having these variables to be tested, so we can support this argument, or we can comfortably saying no, this is not the case, or we couldn't support it enough, or something like this. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Very good. That's a good one. Anyone else want to add to what Dr. Awaad and I have said? Okay. I know that you have opinions because they're going to be forming your thesis. So, so just be thinking.
Definitely, Professor. All this discussion is helpful, and me personally is really thinking about tailoring, getting all this information, and then tailoring towards my research topic. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Good. Very good. All right. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's see if we're at the end of our presentation. That we are. So let me go back to one of the previous ones, so that we just want to. Let's look at lecture 3 again. There's not a whole lot in it, but I just want to make sure to review that, because we're kind of out of sync here a little in this course. Let's go ahead and look at this one again. Not the right one. That was the one I want to share. Okay, I think that's right. Okay, yeah, critiquing an argument. Yeah, so we went through this a little bit, or we kind of combined lecture 2 and lecture 3 together, but this is also going to be important to use some good information here. So an argument is a reasoned defense of an opinion. So we just went through that, right, on making an argument and developing an argument. So a critique offers a reasoned assessment of an argument and answers these questions. What do I agree with? What do I disagree with? And why? And so the video talked about this as well, right? And so this is an important part of developing an argument, is knowing how to critique some of the literature that you'll be reading out there, and how they so that kind of like this timeline, or this linear progression for developing the argument in the video. So when you answer these questions, you're engaging in critique, offering a reasoned assessment of an argument. So that's going to be important as you go through the literature. And remember how the narrator said that at some point you might even change your opinion, and based on the literature that you're reading. And this is very, very true. That's why it's so important to be a critical reader when you're reviewing that literature. You'll find something, you say, "Oh, this looks very good. This might support, my argument." But as you start to read it, there might be something in that might turn you in the other direction. You might all of a sudden realize, "Oh, wait, I never considered that before." And so this is how they were saying it. I don't really agree with this as much as I thought. So this is starting to fade in the background. How they give that visual image of how some of that starts to fade into the background, and so that you'll find that happening as you go through the literature. You're reviewing the literature for your thesis. So that's something to just keep in mind. Okay, so the basic situation is always the same. First, someone writes an argument using readers to believe or do something. And next, a reader responds by agreeing or disagreeing or doing some of both and explaining why. And so that's this is really really important. So anyone have any questions about that? All right. Let's look at something. So, good. Thank you, Sonia. So what is a critique? A written assessment or review of the merits of someone's work. A critique of an argument is a rational assessment of it, organized around one or more points of evaluation, points the author or the argument has made or tried to make. It includes understanding why people disagree. In large part, people disagree because they think about controversial issues or questions in different contexts. That is, different frames of reference based on how they were raised, the life experiences they've had, what they know, believe, and value. So this is very, very, very important. Dr. Awaad and I have been talking about focus a lot here in this lecture. And so this last part here, how they were raised, the life experiences they've had, what they know, believe, and value. That's going to drive your focus. It is also going to drive the audience that you focus on. So who are you trying to convince about this? So there's some arguments that just are geared towards a specific group, of individuals you're trying to persuade. So if you have someone that's already in your corner, then they refer to it as preaching to the choir, is a little saying that they use here a lot. And what that means is that, well, the choir already agrees with you. You don't need to convince them. So your focus is on a different group of people, the people who are out there in the congregation. And specifically, you're talking about a specific topic. And so you're trying to focus on a specific group of individuals. So we're arguing that space exploration is wasteful, and that we should, be spending our time and money and resources here on this planet first. Then your target audience are those who are supporting or who are maybe on the fence, but not the ones who believe that we should be spending money here on this planet. Because you just you don't need to convince them. You're trying to convince others. So your argument and your thesis needs to be formed so that you know that it is going to be something that will get their attention. And so you have to sort of make yourself think the way they're thinking. And so that's why it's important to look at the literature that is the opposite side of the debate that you're in on your thesis. Okay. Good. Okay. So let's see here. And then context and critique. So this is pretty much what I was just trying to explain. So context is the key to understanding an argument as rhetorical communication. Context is the key to understanding why people disagree. Context is the key to understanding your response. So good. So I just wanted to go through that and to kind of review some of the things that we had talked about in that last lecture. Again, all of these presentations are uploaded. This current one that we just went through earlier today is already in Moodle for you to review. And I will be uploading the videos there, since we don't have access to Teams and you can't access the videos there. I will be putting those videos and Moodle, so you can have access to those. Again, we need to make sure that we have those one-on-one scheduled. You should already be thinking about your thesis topic, and you can already be looking at. So you should be outlining right now. Okay, outlining your thesis, looking at some of the literature that's out there. So so you're looking at your thesis, you have your reason, and you have your evidence. You're starting to collect that now. As Dr. Awaad has reminded us, this is a very compressed window of time to be doing this. So it's going to require a lot of work on the back end. So okay, yes.
So, Professor, in the very first lecture, we did talked about the template. That if we have template, I don't think it's too early to talk about it, because if we have a template, then we can think through writing in that process. Because when we are exploring and trying to analyze and try to get how the thesis is basically written from the internet, we will get like 1,000 ways of writing it. So
Mhm.
we definitely want to move forward with the university way, so that when we are completing each step, and I know reviews will be very helpful, but at least as a starting point, if we are using the template, then that will be helpful.
Okay, good, excellent. Thank you for mentioning that. Let me go to the textbook, because I think that and we don't have much time left here, but let me just open, because the textbook actually has a template in it, and so let me see if I can find that very quickly here, and if not, I'll find it after the
Sure,
call.
sure, definitely take your time. Thank you for considering it.
Sure, absolutely. Let's see, we got 5 minutes here, so you can see if I can find it within the next minute. Two. And I'll open both of the texts. Let's see where it is. Okay. So let's go to the.
Professor, I agree with Samia. So if
Yes.
it's possible to bring up an example of a thesis
Mm-hmm.
to
Yes.
see how it's developed, and
Okay.
how we can put the discussions that we are learning, the topics that
Absolutely.
we are learning, to put in our thesis work.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Dr. Awaad had suggested is that maybe we would just share with you our thesis or our dissertations, and then look at that. But let's see here. Let's go to there.
I think also it's very important that everyone knows their, at least the field they want to study.
Mhm.
So when we search for examples, it will come from the same field. So, for example, in the medical field, there are it's a whole genre of
Right.
research. There are so many considerations about the privacy of the information, safety of patients. How will you get the sample? You need to have what is called a controlled group or control group. In
Yes.
other research, we don't do this.
No.
It's very important that by now you should have some idea about, okay, what I want to study. Maybe not as specific as it should be, but at least some idea about, okay, I want to study. For you, for example, Mansour, I want to study something related to sport management, but also I want to include something related to supply chain. So, what questions that could bridge these two fields together. So we can search for, and this is part also from your literature review, because you will try to find literature that tackles the question that you are tackling, or part of the question that you are tackling.
Yes. Very good.
So, Professor, my ask is not about the topic. Topic definitely should be coming from us, and my understanding is that the field we choose and we know more, and so that we can weigh in on the discussion that exactly and really go towards the argument that if any comparative uh, research we need to put in, we need to be knowledgeable on that. So that is totally, we get that the topic we should be aware of totally, and bring our studies in a way that any argument is coming on that platform, we should be able to provide all that research. Totally agree. The template I'm talking about is that you, any topic, any research we are providing to you, there should be a way of writing it, right? So you might have expectation that it should be written in a way that that we are providing our argument first, or our topic first, and then argument, and then rest of the things. So it's just a template we are like looking for.
Okay. Good. Good. So here's one. Okay. So in this APA style website, it has several different templates, and there's a checklist that it gives you. And so it tells you the paper organization. So here you go. You have your introduction, and then your text headings, the page order. Okay. There's reference footnotes, and then and I know that it has one that will give you even specifics of where you put your research findings, where you do your methods sections, and as well. So I will continue to look for that. But a good. I'll drop this in the chat right now. So go to this link, and then I'll put another link in here as well. Okay, but so we're out of time, so I'm not going to hold you, but I will put this in WhatsApp, and when I find the one that has all of the different elements that you just talked about, Samia. I know there is one that talks about that.
Thank you, Professor.
It'll be in WhatsApp. Okay. Any more questions or concerns, things that we should be aware of before we depart this morning? Okay.
So Professor, sorry, not only about the template, but also an example could be beneficial. So, so if we can know that what part of the thesis is the introduction, what part is the evidence, what part is the reasons. So all of that, if we can have an example for that, it would be very good for us to start our thesis with.
Absolutely. I will include a PDF example for you. Okay. All right. Any other questions? You've been very quiet, Rhodas. Is everything you're clear? Everything good?
Yes, Professor. Everything is clear. So I was at work, and now I'm on my way home. That's why.
Okay. And you be careful.
Everything is clear and it's helpful.
Good. Good. Safe travels. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and you can look for those uploads here today. I'll make sure I get those in there today. All right.
Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.
You too. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Awaad.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
That's what we can talk about.